Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's tutorial, I am so excited to show you how I take my super blonde balayage client to a more natural dimensional balayage for the fall time. This is perfect for your clients that want a little bit of a change but don't want to feel too dark at the same time. So if you guys are interested, then just go ahead and keep on watching. So for today's low light formula, I'm using Redken SEQ. I'm going to do 2 ounces of 7N, 1 ounce of 6WG, and 1 ounce of 6N. Adding that WG formula in there just adds a little bit more warmth, so that way the hair doesn't get muddy whenever you're going over the super blonde parts with the low light. And whenever I am doing lowlights with Shades EQ, I like to use the cream version of the processing solution rather than liquid, just because it gives me a little bit more control whenever I am adding it into her foils. So I feel like at this point I don't even need to tell you guys what lightener I'm using, but this is the Schwarzkopf Igora Vario Blonde Plus, and this is the XXL container because I literally go through lightener like it's water. And then I'm going to be using the Vibrance Gel with 6 volume. Now I know some people use this just for the Vibrance toners, but this actually is used for lightener as well. Now the reason I'm starting with 6 volume and not 10 is because I know that she has a ton of hair, so it's going to take me quite a while to put all of her foils in. So start low and slow and work your way up with developer. So that is what I'm doing. And then I'm also going to add in the olaplex in my lightener, of course, just to keep her hair nice and healthy and strong throughout this entire process. So as you guys know, with my balayages, I like to start on the back of the head and work my way up. So I am going to just do a headband section just to get those 2 sections in the front out of my way. So I'm just going to clip those out and then start at the very bottom of her neck area. So down here, her hair is actually a little bit darker because we have done partials for the last, I think, 2 appointments. So right here, as you guys can see, I am doing a weave and just teasing out the top, and then clipping that tease out of the way. So that's one little trick that I like to do is whenever you are working with teasing the hair, I hate when those little hairs get in the way when you're lightening. So I like to just clip them out of the way. So right here, I am going to apply the lightener. I'll turn the camera in just a second, but I am going to apply the lightener very heavily down on the middle of her hair and then feather it up towards her root. So I'm not going all the way up to the root, I'm just feathering it. So right here, you guys can see I'm turning the camera and I'm applying most of the lightener right there in the middle and the ends of her hair and heavily saturating it there and then just feathering up to the root so it's not a harsh line and it just kind of gives that gradient from her root all the way down to the blonde. So because the bottom half of her hair is a lot darker than the top half, I am doing 3 foils that are highlights before I move into doing any lowlights in the hair. And I know that seems kind of backwards considering her overall goal is to feel darker at this appointment and a little bit more natural, is because it has been such a long time since she's done a full foil. and I don't want her to feel too dark in about a month or two and need to come back. So I know that her maintenance is very, very low, typically is what she likes to do. So to keep that maintenance low, I am going to just kind of refresh everything rather than just have it look good for about a month and need to come back, if that makes sense. So as you guys can see, I am doing the exact same thing. I just weaved the hair, teased that top section up, and then putting the lightener, focusing it right in the middle of the hair, and then kind of feathering it up towards the root, making sure to fully saturate the ends of her hair. Now that I've finished up those 3 blonde foils, I'm going to start incorporating my Lowlight. So I do recommend going in with the heavier, chunkier weave when you are adding lowlights to someone's hair. Now the reason I recommend that is number 1, because she does have super thick hair. Lowlights are going to get lost in it, but also if your client has really blonde hair, the lowlights can often get lost in it as well. So you do want to add that heavy impact dimension in there by doing just a thicker weave. And if you are matching that lowlight shade to her root color, then it shouldn't stand out as much as you guys would think it would. Just because it's chunky doesn't mean that it's going to look chunky necessarily. It just adds that really nice dimension and depth in the hair without it looking stripy or anything like that, since this is a balayage. So I'm just going to continue doing this all the way up the back of her head and then move on to the Mohawk sectioning. So I'm just going to continue doing this exact same thing up the back of her head and repeat these steps going up the Mohawk section. Now the pattern that I'm going to be using for the rest of the head is a 1-to-1 ratio. So for every blonde foil I put in, I'll put a lowlight in right after that. This just makes sure that I'm adding enough depth in there, but I'm also moving up her balayage and refreshing the dark parts as well, so it doesn't get too dark and it also doesn't get too light. One thing that you guys will notice as I'm moving my way forward in the Mohawk section is the closer that I get to her face, the closer I'm going to move the lightener up to her root. I'm still not going to bring it all the way up to the scalp, but I'm bringing it a lot closer as I would in the back of her head, so it gives that gradient transition of leaving her hair a lot brighter in the front. So with that being said, when I get to her hairline, I do about 3 foils of just blonde without adding any lowlights in between, just to make sure that I'm still keeping her nice and bright in the front and she doesn't feel like she lost all of her brightness. So now that I've finished with the Mohawk section, I'm moving on to the sides, and I'm just going to show you how I do one since I'm repeating the exact same steps on the other. And with this first foil, I'm going to bring the lightener all the way up to her scalp. And the reason being is, again, because I want to keep her nice and bright so she doesn't feel like she lost her blonde. And then the second foil, I'm again going to do lightener, but I am doing just a little teeny tiny weave, and I'm going to kind of feather it up. And as you guys can see, I'm teasing it a little as well. And then the third one, I'm going to do the exact same thing just to give that gradient transition from really blonde to a little bit less blonde, and then adding that low light right after those 3 foils to give her that nice pop of dimension and make those blonde foils stand out even more. So now you guys will see that I'm doing a big weave for that low light. And once that low light is put in there, I am going to take a diagonal section and add kind of one big balayage piece. And the reason I'm doing diagonal is because I feel like it's a lot more powerful in the hair than just adding like a vertical or a horizontal section. It kind of covers a little bit more surface area. So I'm just doing that exact same technique where I put most of the lightener in the middle, feather my way up, and then just do a really nice kind of heavy saturation on the ends of her hair. Now I'm going to show you what I'm mixing up for her shadow root, and I ended up having some leftovers from her low light, and I didn't want to waste that, so I ended up just mixing some of the 8N, about an ounce in there, just to lighten it up a tad bit, and I'm going to drag that about 1 inch from her root, just to melt in her natural root color to those balayage pieces that we did put in there. And then for her all over toner, I'm mixing 8 GI, equal parts to 8N, with the liquid processing solution. And that's just going to give her a really nice toned down buttery blonde. It's the perfect buttery blonde without it being too blonde or too dark. Unfortunately, I was running a little bit behind, so I didn't get the chance to film me blow drying or styling her hair, but I'm super excited to show you guys the after and how it turned out. We didn't end up doing a haircut. She just wanted to trim up her face framing pieces, so that is what we did. But as you guys can see, this is the finished result. I am absolutely blown away by these results. It is such a beautiful, natural, kind of dirty blonde color with the perfect amount of blonde highlights in there. It's going to be so low maintenance for her, and I just think this is the perfect way to add depth and dimension in there without her feeling too dark and like I took away her blonde. Let me know what you guys think down below. I hope to see you guys in my next video, and thank you so much for watching today. Bye guys.